Hello, hello, and welcome back to Reignite Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Laura Plahuta, and I am super excited. We have an incredible episode today from a weekly series that we'll be releasing on the podcast every single Monday with Julia Simone, who is an incredible recovery coach and spiral practitioner, an amazing friend of mine. And we are having these conversations every single week live in the Recover and Rise Facebook group. So if you want to join us over there, then please feel free to. We would love to have you. The link is in the description of this episode. And so for today's episode, we're going to be chatting a little bit more on why it is so necessary to deepen your self-love. Have you ever felt that you aren't quite living up to your full potential in life and that there is something greater out there that you have yet to find? Are you ready to uncover the secrets to embodying that highest version of yourself so you can create the legacy that you are proud of? If this sounds like you, then continue on with the episode. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our very first weekly live training that we're going to be doing in this group. I'm very, very excited to be here with you. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Laura, and I'm one of the executive recovery coaches here with Recover and Rise. And I'm going to be having Julia Simone join me on here, who's actually the founder of Recover and Rise. And she is such an incredible human being, and she's been a huge asset to my own recovery journey. So we're very excited to be popping on here more frequently with you all in this group as we continue this evolution to all collectively deepen our recovery, and so that we can just truly live out our life legacy on this planet in the most joyful, loving, peaceful way that we possibly can, and really allow that to ripple out to the world. So if you're on here live, say hello. And let us know where you're coming from in the comments. And we're going to give you a chance to pop on here. And if you're catching the replay of this, then say hello. Here we go. Here comes Julia. Amazing. Hi, Julia.
Hi.
So I'm just going to introduce you to everybody. For those of you who don't know Julia, Julia is the founder of Recover and Rise. And she's an executive recovery coach. She is a spiral practitioner. She's a personal trainer. She's a musician, an artist, a singer, songwriter. She is just absolutely amazing in so many areas. And I know I already shared this, but she has been a huge, huge asset to me in my own recovery journey. So I'm super excited for this venture to be coming on here live weekly with you and just sharing more of this goodness to this group.
I'm honored. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, Laura, for also saying yes to her own recovery journey. She's come so far and is just such a powerhouse. So really excited for her to share her gifts in this group as well.
Thanks, Julia. So for today's topic, we thought that we would come on here and just talk about a little bit more about deepening that self-love throughout the recovery journey. And I guess, Julia, if you would be open to just sharing your story a little bit more in that self-love kind of journey for yourself as you went through your recovery with binge eating and all of the other kind of addictions that started noticing as you went along your healing journey.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Julia. I am a recovered bulimic and binge eater and all sorts of things. And I really started this journey maybe like 9-10 years ago. And I was young, full of energy, was really someone who was doing so many things. But at the end of the day, just still fell back into those cycles of self-sabotage. And so it wasn't really until I found these tools to support me that I found some recovery. And then I decided to keep going. I decided to keep healing my trauma. I decided to journey and venture into various modalities and experiences. And really, I'm so excited to share what we've learned, what we've found works for not only myself, but for countless other people. So really, I mean, I didn't really know what self-love was back in the day because all I thought about was not being good enough and how I needed to be more and how I needed to do more in order to feel good, or I needed other people's approval in order to feel good, or I needed everyone to like me in order to feel good. And the irony was that even when I had some of those things inside, I still didn't really feel that joy, that way of being that I always wanted to feel. Mm-hmm. My dog is going through my garbage. Diamond, come here. And so really, I started to ask myself, well, why? What's happening? What's going on? And I didn't realize how much I was carrying inside of me, carrying resentments, carrying fears, carrying beliefs that other people had instilled onto me. Beliefs like, oh, you might never be able to accomplish this thing, or you might never be able to do this thing. So, in saying yes to my recovery journey, ultimately, we're saying yes to the self-love journey. Oh, Diamond. Ultimately, she's over here. Ultimately, we're saying yes to not only um, healing ourselves, but we're also saying yes to our dreams, our visions, our gifts, our creative gifts, and everything in between. And what I learned is that the more I came in integrity with myself, the more that my actions, my words, and who I was being in the world fell in line with who I could see myself being and who I was in my integrity, with integrity, that was when I started to feel the most self-love. The self-love wasn't happening while I was still lying about certain things, while I was still trying to control what other people thought of me, while I was, trying to arrange the show to suit myself. That's not when I felt self-love. When I felt self-love was when I actually became able to set the boundaries that I needed to set for myself. When I felt self-love, it was when I started to say no to people, places, and things that just didn't resonate with my soul anymore. When I felt the most self-love, it was when I took those steps in the directions of my dreams, despite feeling those fears and feeling, afraid to do so. Those are just examples of when that self-love kind of falls into place. And it's still a journey. It's still very much a journey. Coming on this live is an act of self-love because we are, following spirit's inkling in my heart to say, what, these tools need to be shared with people. And so that connection spiritually, I think that some of us stop at the 12 steps and we're just like, yeah, okay, I believe. But do we actually take the time to cultivate that connection to spirit and to cultivate that connection to our deep inner knowing that's going to help us, guide us, and allow us to really move into these next phases of our lives in a way that is still filled with so much peace and joy? Because some of us are doing amazing things. Some of us are working incredible jobs. Some of us are, you know, doing the art, doing the businesses, and creating the things. So, what's happening inside for us to not feel that self love? Sometimes it's just little things where we feel like we should be a certain way because that's how other people want us to be. That's how we're going to get that sense of approval. And so it's about discovering, and that's what this deeper recovery journey is about, discovering what's actually true for myself and living that truth and not letting anything come in the way between you and that connection to spirit and your truth and how you see yourself moving through life.
Yeah, that's huge. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I think like some of the biggest pieces that I kind of took away from what you shared was in the beginning of your recovery journey, you had noticed that you were kind of going outside of yourself to receive comfort or receive pleasure because you were feeling that lack of that love inside. And even though you were doing such amazing things in your life, like you were very successful in many areas, I know you a little bit more than even what you shared, but in athletics, like in career, in all of these places, you were so successful, yet that bankruptcy really came from within. And by you being able to start slowly pulling those pieces back to yourself and tuning into your inner guidance of what actually felt true to you. And I know I learned this through going through this recovery journey as well, about slowing down and actually being able to take that brief little pause to actually tune in and ask myself, is this something that is in integrity with where I see myself going, that allows me to actually be the person that can carry out that greater vision that I actually see for myself in this lifetime? And so do you have any like advice for people who are kind of in that space of starting to notice that they're going outside of themselves and they're really wanting to pull back that power and set those boundaries? Because that was one of the questions that somebody had asked in there as well, in one of the posts that you had put out, asking for some things that people were looking to receive some information on. And that was one of the things that they had shared, was about how to start honing in on those boundaries.
Yeah, I think boundaries is a big topic. So I can just touch base a little bit on how maybe self-love and boundaries connect.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine, I mean, we want to also just ask ourselves, it's like, what is what is actually preventing ourselves from loving ourselves right now in this moment, exactly as we are?
Mm-hmm.
And if we close our eyes and just tune in, what would a lot of us say? You know, I'm sure after helping so many people through this question, what often comes up is, I don't like how I've been speaking to those closest to me, or I don't like how I've been acting with my work and my friends and family, or, I don't like the things I've been settling for in my work environment and my relationships. So, and then there's more, of course. Maybe we don't like how people have been walking all over our boundaries. Well, okay, so, what would it look like to create that relationship, deepen that relationship to yourself in a way where you start to become and see yourself being the person you've always wanted to be?
Mm-hmm.
And that starts with number one, saying yes to a deeper recovery journey, just saying yes to asking for extra support, because I always have this saying that if you've only known one life, how can you know another way? So I actually couldn't like take myself into that next way of being. I actually needed help and support for people to help me move from where I was into who I can now see myself being. And that just takes some time and the right mentors and some guidance and the right programs. And then from there, you start to do the work of, well, what's actually really going on? Is there a fear about saying no? Is there a resentment towards these people in your life? Is there, there's so many things that we don't know are deep within us. And once we move through that, we start to pick apart the pieces. We start to wit- have what you're feeling come up and be voiced so that we can release it. And then you can decide, start to design the life that you would like to live.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, what that can look like is, let's say I don't like who I've been being at work because, sometimes I'll say yes to a drink or two, or sometimes I'll say yes to going to this person's house late at night, or sometimes, I cross my own boundaries and I say something like this to someone. So, processing that hurt that's around those situations,
Mm-hmm.
then asking yourself who you can now see yourself being. What is it I'd like to say no to? What are the boundaries I would actually like to set?
Mm-hmm.
And then can you imagine how you would feel if you're actually able to maintain your inner integrity in those situations? Can you imagine how you'd feel if you actually start to become the person that you know you've been destined to be in those situations? You would have completely new interactions with people. You would, start to see how you can be of service more and more to people in your life. You can actually start to converse with spirit while you are in those situations and ask spirit to guide you and move you through these new opportunities presented in your life. And that's how miracles happen. That's how we start to meet people by mistake or coincidence.
Mm-hmm.
We start to, earn more money because we're in more alignment. We start to open up to new friendships and new people that have always wanted to be in our lives. And we start to have a different way of living, one that's not rooted in shame and grief and guilt, but one that's actually rooted in love and joy and peace. And so that's my vision for anyone who's on the self-love journey. You can absolutely do it. Do you have anything that you want to add, Laura, maybe to that conversation?
I don't think so. I think maybe I would just love to invite everybody to put in the comments, whoever's watching, like, what is one thing that you feel like you want to start saying no to? something that doesn't really feel like it's in alignment with where you're headed or where you want to go or who you can see yourself being. What is that one thing? Because I think a lot of the time, I know for me, like I make things like it's like it's like a huge step. But in reality, those little tiny little things that we start doing actually build into those big things. And it can seem overwhelming when we're on this big recovery journey of recovering our sense of self and overcoming all of the traumas and all of the stuff that we've kind of been through in our lifetime, that we can kind of undervalue these little tiny steps that actually get us to where we want to go. So I would love for it, for those of you watching, to just put that one thing in the comments that you would love to start saying no to, so that we can hold you accountable to really be able to uphold your integrity. Because I know I have so many times, I would definitely be the person who would set the boundary and then cross my own boundary, and it was like I didn't even know what boundaries were, just because in my childhood it never came up. Like there was just a lot of people pleasing and doing for others. And it was interesting because I was actually listening to a video earlier today, and it was just talking about the nervous system and about the different responses when we're in the fight or flight or the sympathetic. And it was like fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And they just kind of recently added these in. It used to just be fight or flight, but they've actually added more of them into it. And the fawn really stood out for me because it's like a kind of like a baby deer, but it's like you want to merge into your environment as a sense of safety. And I always saw myself as a chameleon, where I would like merge into different situations, which was amazing because everybody loved me, right? But I was disregarding all of my boundaries, and I didn't even know what I wanted because I was always doing for what I perceived other people wanted from me. So it was interesting kind of listening to that. So boundaries has been like a massive thing for me in that self-love journey, because the more that I started tuning inward to actually start asking myself those questions of like, oh, well, what actually isn't feeling good to me? And do I have the courage and the strength to actually say no and uphold that to myself? And it was huge. And it really helped me when I actually had people holding me accountable, or I worked with you, or I worked with other people, or I told this to other people, like in my close network, and I communicated why that boundary was so important to me. And then, so I guess like after that, that second question I would love for you to answer is, why is this an important thing for you? Why would this shift your life in beautiful ways if you upheld this boundary? And how do you see that actually bringing you where you want to go? Because when we start with those small steps and then we allow it to project a vision or cast a vision as to where that will actually lead us to go, it will no longer feel like an obligation to have to do these things. It will be like a pull, where we'll be so excited to be able to set these boundaries and uphold our integrity, so that we're actually seeing where we want to go. And we're like, heck yes, like I want to do this because I know where I'm going. And that's what I'm doing. It. If you like it, then that's great. If not, then that's okay too, So I think that's something that I would just kind of love to put in here, because it can be challenging. It can be challenging when we've kind of had these patterns for quite a long time. And like you said, we only know that one way of being and we don't know another way of being. So just like borrowing the belief of Julia and I, where there is so many other ways of being out there for you to live. It's just this process of reintegrating a new way of being, and then starting to embody that version of yourself and acknowledging yourself for all of the growth that you've probably already had on your journey, because we've all been through so much over the course of our lifetime. So I think that's really the only thing I'd love to share.
Powerful, 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 powerful. Yeah, and I mean, we can even just tune into what's at risk. What's at risk right now without that sense of alignment, without that sense of integrity, right? Is it just falling back into the same old patterns? Is it, maybe there's a relationship that's struggling? Maybe there's some things on the line with business, and just thinking about that stuff. I knew even financially, if I didn't start to shift into this new way of being, that, we needed to shift there. And so just being open to the change, I think, is really scary for a lot of people. But remembering the that what's that line I'm looking for? When we become sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. I'm feeling sick and tired of feeling this certain way. That's kind of when we get to know that there's more on the other side. There is a deeper way of loving ourselves more. There are deeper ways of setting healthier boundaries. There are ways that people want to love us that we don't even yet know. And so just imagining, I just want to plant that seed here. We're going to expand more on this in the coming weeks. And we just want to thank whoever is joining. Right below your key takeaway for us. What's one thing that you learned from this live video with Laura and I? And we're so looking forward to connecting. Let us know if you have any questions. And yeah, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we will see you next week. Same day, same time. And we look forward to it. Awesome. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for being on here. Thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Laura. Love you.
I love you too.